Welcome to the Under 8 podcast, a 3 times per week college basketball show brought to you in under 8 minutes. At the time of recording, it is Sunday, March 31st, 8:06 p.m. My name is Josh Mullenix. On today's pod, we have a men's Final Four. We have half of a women's Final Four. Plenty to talk about on the college basketball side of things. Let's get to it all right now on the Under 8 podcast. Josh Doering is here with me. A ton to get to, Josh, from the last couple of days, from today in particular. Let's jump right into it. We're going to do this in the context of which two teams are going to play in the Final Four on the men's side, and then we'll touch on the teams that have punched their ticket to the Final Four on the women's side. So, on the left side of the men's bracket, UConn versus Alabama in the Final Four. UConn getting there by an absolutely second half dismantling, really, of the Illinois Fighting Illini. But at some point, UConn started making shots, and it became very clear very quickly that the game wasn't going to be competitive late into the second half. 77-52, the final score there. Alabama gets to the Final Four via a 7-point win over Clemson. But we'll start with the defending national champions, who flexed their muscles for the second 20 minutes. And we went from maybe this is a really fun second half to just an absolutely ludicrous 30-0 run, right?
Yep.
That doesn't hurt when trying to win a 40-minute college basketball game. That's what the Fighting Dan Hurleys did, and the Huskies are back in the Final Four.
UConn shot 3 of 17 from 3 and won by 25 points against a team that supposedly was the biggest threat remaining because of their offense.
Mm-hmm.
I never bought that. I don't know. I don't think you did either. But everybody kind of got on this. Oh, Illinois might pull this off. They were 3 of 17 from 3. They still won by 25 points. Now, yes, scoring 30 consecutive points obviously helps with that. And Illinois kept it close in the first half. They didn't blow them out for 40 minutes, but the second half was a non-contest.
Yeah.
Which also means there's not really much to say about this game other than I'm just kind of looking forward and thinking about one thing for UConn. I have believed, and this game reaffirmed it for me, that to me, your best, and I'm curious whether you agree with me on this, to me, your best chance of beating this team is beating them kind of at their game rather than trying to play the game your way. Which is why I thought Iowa State had a chance to beat them, because Iowa State can match up physically, right? They can kind of make the game ugly. If UConn misses enough shots, by definition, if you're keeping the game in the 60s, it's easier to have a chance because you just don't have to score as many points. Purdue, from a matchup standpoint, and I'm sure we'll get to this as we continue here, pretty similar. Not exactly the same style, but there are a lot of similarities there. As opposed to Illinois, who was supposed to do this through Terrence Shannon, through this, spacing offense without the defensive part of it. And this is an average 3-point shooting team. That's the other part. Because you could look at it and go, well, look at what Creighton did to them. Yeah, because when Creighton's offense goes nuclear, it's from the 3-point line. And they can hit, 10 of them and a half. Mm-hmm. That's not Illinois. Illinois is trying to beat you through Terrence Shannon, through isolation, and through spacing the floor. Good luck trying to do that against UConn. I just wasn't. I wasn't surprised that Illinois kept it close for a little bit because they're a very good team, obviously, and also just wasn't surprised at the end result here. I mean, didn't see the 30-0 run coming, but one of these teams is just much better than the other one and much more multidimensional than the other one.
Yeah, I think the only chance you have of beating UConn is having the very best player on the floor and it not being close. I think that's the only chance you have of beating UConn. It's the only chance that anyone has of beating South Carolina on the women's side because they are so unbelievably strong at every position.
And you got to keep it lower scoring because they're so, yeah.
I mean, part of me thinks that if there's literally nothing you can do if UConn just plays even okay.
But
there's part of me that feels that.
There's a comment, right? This is much easier said than done in terms of, well, here's how you beat UConn, or here's how you beat South Carolina. Yeah, there's a reason that 3 teams total have beaten those 2 teams so far this season.
Yeah, and like you said, Creighton made everything.
Yeah,
but when you go back and look, it was Kevin McCullough, KJ Adams, and Hunter Dickinson, like combined, it might have been their best game of the season when Kansas beat UConn earlier this season. And Kadari Richmond was the best player on the floor when Seton Hall beat him.
Yep.
I'm not sure there's anything else you can do because they're probably going to have the best player on the floor anyways. And it was Donovan Clingan in this game. He was absolutely ridiculous. Like some of the stats about when he was on the floor versus when he wasn't on the floor were to laugh out loud. But like I kind of just think that's it, because from a position versus position, from a can we get a sum from all of our parts on like a normal, just everyone playing solid basketball night, can we get a higher number than UConn's going to get? I think the answer is almost always no, unless you get a really special performance from somebody individually, and you didn't get that from anybody. I mean, like Terrence Shannon Jr. was 2 of 12. The game could probably be over right there. Like if you told me that, I would tell you that they got smoked. Yeah, absolutely no chance. Like that was probably the pathway. It had to start with Terrence Shannon Jr. was the best player on the floor. And that was always going to be so hard with how rock solid from 1 to 8 UConn is, because at some point, if you don't have a guy that's just better than everybody else, at some point UConn's going to be so much better than you at their 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th guy that it's just it's impossible to beat them. It really is.
And it's 10 times more difficult for that person to be a wing or a guard because they're so long, they're so athletic. Now, yes, Kadari Richmond did it. It's possible. But
once every 35 games.
Right.
Yeah.
To me, it has to be a very specific type of best player, too. Either somebody who's knocking down every 3 they're taking, or Zach Edey.
It's truly daunting trying to figure it out. I also thought it was funny that, we spent all of that time talking about how good Illinois' offense was and how it was the best offense in the country. You know who was first offensively at KenPom going into the game? It was UConn.
Yep.
Statistically speaking, per Kim Pomeroy, Illinois wasn't even the best offense in the game. Now, granted, I understand. I know it's more complicated than that, and I'm not saying that the people saying that Illinois' offense was high powered were wrong. That's not what I'm saying. But like Illinois in a sub 75 defense probably never had any chance of beating UConn.
I agree. Because they
weren't did I think they'd look so silly in the second half like that?
No,
probably
of course not.
But I mean, if you told me they won by 25, I'd probably be like, okay, they won by 12 each half. Yeah. They won by 10 each half and won by 20. What happened in the second half was truly striking, but like there's a team that we do this with every year as a collective college basketball fan.
Sure.
Where we get too excited about one team.
Yep.
And we probably got too excited about Illinois. Probably got too excited about Illinois, who was always good enough to beat Iowa State. Like that wasn't
almost didn't.
Sure, 100%. But they beat Morehead State in the first round, and then they got a Duquesne team in the second round.
Right.
And there's always a team. This year it was probably Illinois, and in the Gonzaga year 2021, it was USC. Like we got to the Elite Eight and it was, oh my gosh, can Evan Mobley and company like push Gonzaga? And the answer was no. And this year it was Illinois, and the team that was clearly better all season flexed their muscles for at least the second 20 minutes. And the first 20 minutes were really more of a product of shots just not going down. And eventually they did and ran away with it.
Yeah. Shall we move to Alabama?
Let's move to Alabama. Alabama 89, Clemson 82 fun basketball game. I come here with, my hands in the air, and I have to tip my cap to Nate Oates and Alabama. I didn't think this was something that they were capable of doing. I know you have different feelings about that, and also the difference between winning 4 games and getting to the Final Four, and winning 6 and winning a national championship. I'm sure we will get to that. But Mark Sears, 23 points to lead the way. Jaron Stevenson was awesome off the bench for Alabama. And, PJ Hall fouls, rears their ugly head again. He fouls out of this game. And despite, across the board, Joe Girard had a nice game. Ian Shefflin was doing Ian Shefflin's things, 18 and 11. It wasn't like Clemson played a poor game, but Mark Sears knocked down 7 threes. Alabama did what they did, which is knock down a ton of threes, 16 of 36 from the 3-point line. And they did like all of it in the second half.
Yeah, exactly.
And just a little bit too much. And what was a wild basketball game. And Clemson scored 50 in the second half, and it wasn't good enough to beat Alabama. And the Tide, here they are again in the Final Four of another college athletics tournament. I'm tired of it. I didn't think I'd have to deal with it, in January and in whatever. Where are we? March, right? March Madness, right? That's what we're doing here. But Alabama headed to Phoenix.
Yeah, congratulations. They invested in Nate Oates. They invested in this program and said we need to make this happen. They've made it happen. Yeah, here's basically what I'll say. If they beat UConn, I will have to sit here and say I was wrong. They played a game against UNC that was very much their style of game. They are going to be able to beat anybody in the country on given days doing that.
Yeah.
Clemson is not beating them the way that second half went.
Yep.
Now, part of that was right. Alabama just made everything. They gave up 50 points. But Clemson is not.
We're still not wrong about Alabama here, by the way. We're not wrong about Alabama's like needing 54 to win a half by 4 is very Alabama.
And it looked like they might early. They looked like they might shoot themselves out of this game, and then they turned it around. And now part of that is just volume, right? The more you take, the more likely it's going to get back to average. They exceeded that average, which is why they ultimately won, and they got the game going at their tempo.
Yeah.
This is again I just don't see UConn letting them do this. If they find a way to do it against UConn, if they find a way to do it against UConn, Nate Oates has cracked the code. This is a viable way to win a championship.
I'll be stunned.
We're to that point.
Yeah,
and
you're right.
There are some other things I want to discuss later on, but that's really my big thing is none of this is shocking in a vacuum. You can look at every single game and go, here's why they were able to win these games. And they're obviously a very good team that is capable of getting to a Final Four when things break right and they get their good shooting nights.
Indeed. Anything else on those 2 games before we hop to the other side of the bracket?
Nope. Let's keep going.
Purdue, the Fighting Matt Painters.
Boiler up.
On the back of 40 and 16 from the National Player of the Year. Beat Tennessee 72-66. Awesome game. It had the feeling of this is going to be awesome for 40 minutes from the jump. It basically was maybe awesome for 39 minutes. They're going to take on NC State in the Final Four, like we all predicted. The most Duke performance of all time in the Elite Eight. We'll get to that game in a moment, but Purdue 72, Tennessee 66. At one point, Josh, Purdue and Tennessee were tied at 58. Zach Edey had 31. Dalton Connect had 31. And they had gotten 27 from the rest of their teams. Crazy performances from both guys. Of course, Zach Edey, career high, 40 and 16. I'm not super interested in doing the whole Zach Edey Twitter thing, but it was a performance that it's impossible, at least for me, to explain how impressive that is with a Final Four hanging in the balance. Ultimately, they needed all of it, and he gave it to him 72-66. What say you?
Yeah. Couple things. Purdue had 2 of the best 3 players on the floor. That was the other thing that swung this game.
That's correct.
Because at least for a while there, Dalton Knecht was not getting a lot of help. He didn't get a lot of help generally, and Purdue's role players were bad also, but Braden Smith was the 3rd best player on the floor. Zakai Ziegler, all those threes that were falling, stopped falling in this game. That was part of the difference. The other thing that I had not really dwelled on heading into this matchup that became abundantly clear, to a certain extent, it doesn't matter how good you are defensively if you just physically don't have the size to guard him.
Yeah.
Right? And yes, they only scored 72 points. It's not like Tennessee gave up 85 or something. You can take everybody else away. That's basically what Tennessee did. You can force them to.
They probably should have, though. They probably should have. Like, they missed some wide open threes.
And they had that's the other part of this. Couldn't hit a 3. And Matt Painter said it after the game. I saw talking to one of the local Indianapolis TV stations. We were an average 3-point shooting team last year. We came back. We are a really good 3-point shooting team now. Wasn't in this game, but my point being, they survived that game. The matchup was favorable because Tennessee just physically had no answer for Zach Edey because they don't have size. And, there was some foul trouble on top of that because Zach Edey's impossible to guard. And they still were in this game, which is a testament to how good Tennessee is. And I firmly believe if they were in another bracket, they'd be going to the Final Four. This is no criticism of Tennessee whatsoever. Zach Edey just said, I'm going to the Final Four, end of story.
Yeah. I got a couple things here. One, I thought it was clear pretty quickly that he was just too big. Like if you're having to go to JP Estrella, with all due respect to JP Estrella, who had a very good game. Like that's a guy who had played more than 10 minutes once this year. He played 15 in this game, and I thought he was from a like they all had a bunch of fouls. Awaka fouls out, Meshack fouls out. He had 3 fouls in 15 minutes to Estrella, but I thought he was competitive, and I thought he was pretty effective. He was playing with a lot of intensity, I thought, in almost impossible assignment that he got from Rick Barnes. But if that's happening, it's probably because you're searching.
Yep.
And it felt like they were searching, and so it was just going to be a matter of a couple things. Because Zach Edey was going to be there. Zach Edey was going to put them in a position to win this basketball game. And there was a point in the second half where I was worried that when the time came for a guy with Purdue across his chest to make a shot, I was a little worried that they weren't going to make it, or they weren't going to take it, because there was some of that. There was definitely some hesitancy from guys not named Zach Edey in the second half. But Fletcher Loyer made some big plays. Lance Jones, who couldn't hit the broadside of a barn for most of the game, knocks down a 3 finally. That I think pushes it from 63-60 to 66-60.
I think you're right.
I think that, and I thought in a lot of ways that was the game. They got a couple of timely buckets from guys, and they were able to kind of get it over the hump after Zach Edey, 14 straight points or whatever it was at one point in the second half. He got him there, and they made the plays that they needed to down the stretch too, which was ultimately the difference, because Dalton Knecht also got Tennessee to that same spot. He also carried them to the point where at the under 4 timeout, there was a chance for Tennessee to win the game.
Purdue's role players were better.
And Purdue's role players were better when they needed to be. I thought Lance Jones on Dalton Knecht. I thought it was weird that Braden Smith was on Dalton Knecht to start the game. That didn't make a ton of sense to me. There was clearly a shift in how easy things were for him when Painter made the switch to put Lance Jones on Dalton Knecht. It was an awesome game, and with 2 stars that had unbelievable performances, and the margins. And the difference in a lot of ways was because Purdue's role guys, like Braden Smith's not a role player in my opinion, but the non-stars on the floor were a little bit were better for Purdue, and that was ultimately the difference.
They were also every time Tennessee made the run to cut it, it seemed like they always stopped at 1.
Yeah.
Purdue went on another right. It was Lance Jones. That 3 was part of it. They always put the next spurt together. And you got to give them credit for that because it'd be easy to start feeling the pressure when here comes Tennessee again. And here comes Dalton Connect again.
Yeah.
But every single time they answered the bell, as they've done all season long.
Purdue to the Final Four via 72-66 win over Tennessee in the nightcap, which shout out to the NCAA real quick. Thanks for the nightcap, not starting at 9:30. We appreciate that. It's 8:26. We're already 20 minutes into the pod. We're going to be wrapped up by 8:35. This is like a dream. And all ACC battle for the final spot in the Final Four. NC State 76, Duke 64. DJ Burns is America's college basketball player. 29. I had somebody describe him to me earlier today as just a huge Jokic, which I didn't realize there's a huger version of Jokic.
He's got some of that. Yeah.
It was hyperbole, absolutely, but the point was made. But the point was made. DJ Horn 20 points. Those two guys had 49 combined. And apart from Jared McCain, who had 32, a lot of those questions and a lot of those things that we were asking about Duke and a lot of those things that made us think that they had no chance to beat Houston felt like some of that came back. We had a lot of that. Wait a second, if all of these freshmen aren't awesome collectively, how good is Duke? Some of that comes back. Tyrese Proctor has a bad night. It just wasn't enough to beat an NC State team that has clearly found something that got the sprinkled magic dust of March, and they keep on rolling. And for yet another game, Josh, not only does NC State win, they kind of just look like the better team doing it.
Yeah,
and tonight it was a 12-point win, and they're going to Phoenix like everyone predicted.
Yeah,
first time since 1983.
First half wasn't great. Took them a while to get going offensively, but over the 40 minutes, yeah, there was no question who the better team was. NC State had the best 2 players on the floor. Their names were both DJ.
Sure.
Nobody outside Jared McCain hit a 3.
There's a good T-shirt there, right? There's got to be a good T-shirt opportunity there.
Kyle Filipowski fouls out and was not very effective. It doesn't need to be more complicated than that. Duke just really struggled offensively in the second half. Defensively, they couldn't do much either. Another physically imposing team comes in, or at least a physically imposing interior. And yeah, all that stuff that we praised them for against Houston, nowhere to be found.
Let me run something by you. I was thinking about this. I didn't get to watch a ton of this game, thanks to my official employment. So I didn't get to see a ton of this game, but I was thinking about this idea. I think the Jamal Shed thing like unlocked maybe like a belief in Duke against Houston, like an almost like, oh, we can do this thing.
Especially as it was coming right as they had started to kind of get comfortable in the game.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I think there's some validity to that.
And I don't really know what that means about this game, because like I don't really know what the point A to point B is from that game to this game, but it unlocked some sort of, I mean, it's the same thing as like when a pitcher who's been absolutely smoking a lineup for 7 innings hits his pitch limit and he comes out, and there's this level of like, okay, we're in this thing still. We're only down 4-1. There's a new pitcher, and let's go after this guy. And I don't know, like I said, I don't really know what the point is there, but your opponent losing a guy like Jamal Shed and there being this extra belief, because they looked rattled at the beginning of that game. And as they kind of started to sink into that game, then you have this thing that you can almost rally around, even if it's subconsciously. This, okay, we kind of felt like we could do this, and now we really, really think we can do this, and there's some vulnerability here. And I don't know, maybe there's nothing to that, but it was something that I was thinking about. And the other way around, like kind of once DJ Horn, DJ Burns, once they get going, then it's like, man, are we ever going to be able to stop these guys? And the answer tonight was no.
And they have confidence no matter what's happening. Even in that first half when it wasn't great, this team is playing so well right now that wasn't going to phase them. Which I think is maybe that's the application here. Is they were playing a team that was not going to be shaken by anything, and so when those answers weren't coming, when they didn't have a way to change the trajectory of the game, you saw the frustration mount very, very quickly for Duke.
NC State to the Final Four. How about that?
What a time to be alive. Congratulations.
There you go.
It's cool.
Kevin, it is truly wild how Kevin Keatts went from maybe at the very top of the hot list.
Yep.
A month and a half ago when they were down at halftime to, I think, Notre Dame at home.
Or even just go to the Virginia
or Louisville at home. But yeah, if they don't win the ACC tournament,
and Michael O'Connell doesn't make that shot in, this is not a conversation.
Yeah. And now he might be the safest coach in the country.
Yeah.
Behind it might be Hurley, Payne, or Keatts.
Yeah.
That may be the top 3 in the power rankings. How about that? I suppose Oates is supposed to be up there as well. Shocking that those 4 coaches are in the Final Four. Maybe that has something to do with it. But Purdue will play NC State on the right side of the bracket in Phoenix. UConn versus Alabama. Purdue versus NC State. We got more basketball to play next weekend on the men's side. On the women's side, Josh, we have half of our Final Four. Tomorrow's going to be awesome. Today had some interesting threads running through it. Not sure we need to do too much on the 3-point line paint issues in Portland. I think everything that needs to that can't happen.
It speaks for itself.
Yeah, it speaks for itself. That can't happen. I don't think there's a ton else that needs to be said right this second.
Good for the teams for playing and just saying we're going to get on with it.
Sure,
that's the one thing I would add.
Good for, and at the same time, they'd totally be valid and being like, no, you're going to fix our court.
100%.
Right?
Right.
But you tip your cap to them playing through it. I would have tipped their cap, tip my cap if they would have put their foot down and said, no, you're going to fix this. And then we'll play our Elite 8 game with a chance to go to the Final Four.
They should have never been in that position, but you got to give them props for just saying, we're not going to let this get in our way here.
We're going to return to North Carolina, and we're going to return to NC State because NC State, not only the men are going to the Final Four, the women are going to the Final Four as well. 76-66 win over Texas. And what a day, what a couple weeks for the Wolfpack. Of course, this is not the same situation in terms of a surprise when it comes to this NC State women's team. This is a team that's now 31-6 on the season. It was clear pretty early on in the season that this was something that they were capable of doing. They beat the number 1 seed Texas to make their way all the way to Cleveland. But the Wolfpack on the women's side, they will continue dancing one more weekend as well.
Isaiah James, first half, absolutely preposterous.
Sure.
Couldn't miss from 3. And yeah, when you lose the 3-point line by 24 points, it's tough to beat a good basketball team. And that was the situation Texas found themselves in. The threes weren't falling. They were for NC State. NC State's guards were really, really good. Madison Booker tried to keep Texas in the second half. But yeah, and we said this from the beginning that we felt that because of the way things fell, that this was a vulnerable bracket, and these 3 teams, NC State, Stanford, Texas, were all very, very close to each other, and all of them could beat each other on the right night. And yeah, here we go. This is my new favorite thing, is that we have 8 teams still playing Division I college basketball, and we could have 2 NC State UConn championship games.
Sure. I'm into it. I got no issue with that. 76-66.
I guess like I said, it's not 8 yet, but
it's 10, right?
Yeah. Right. I got too excited.
4 on the men's side. Yeah, 6 on the women's side, right? Yeah. We still got 2 games. But still, the it's still possible. Still, we could have those 2 games twice out of 10 teams is ridiculous. 76-66 for NC State. Like I said, that's a team that we saw Final Four abilities in early. and they get it done against Texas. Another team that we've seen Final Four abilities on. South Carolina, 36-0, a 70-58 win over the 3 seed Oregon State. And just like Death in Texas, Josh, all 9 South Carolina players score. Nobody has more than 15, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them have at least 8. It is a train that has so many cars on it that at some point it's going to just run you over, and that's what they did to Oregon State. The big determining factor was the third quarter. They win that quarter by 8 points and ultimately win this game by 12.
Not only did everybody contribute, Tessa Johnson came off the bench and was the leading scorer with those 15 points you mentioned.
Correct.
All 4 bench players that saw action scored at least 8 points.
That's correct.
To further illustrate the depth here, this wasn't even about the starting lineup.
That's correct.
And if they dominated the inside, I mean, you can go down the list of things. There's really not too much here other than I want to give Oregon State credit.
22 offensive rebounds, Josh, is crazy town. Yeah. Crazy town.
To say they physically imposed their will on this game would be an understatement.
That's correct.
This Oregon State team, to have a disappointing season last season where things weren't going well, to have kind of, and you and I were talking about text about this with Clemson's men's teams too, to have all of these players say, we're not going anywhere. We're going to do this together. We're going to commit ourselves in the offseason. We are not going to let this happen again. Mm-hmm. To be picked 10th in their conference, the best conference in the country, and then to do this, what they did all season long, being right up there with the best teams in the best conference in the country, to get to an Elite Eight, to play South Carolina close and give themselves an opportunity to win this game when nobody expected anything from them, with internal improvement and players who stuck around. I just want to give them a lot of credit on an incredible season because it's a really, really cool story that you don't see all that often in college basketball anymore.
Trivia time, Josh. How many seniors are on Oregon State's roster this year?
I'm just going to say 0. I know it's not very many.
That's correct. There's 0. So 3 seed, 27-8. Like you said, top 4 finish in the best conference in the country. And, you know, things change, things happen, but they could bring that entire team back.
And the most unfortunate part of it all is that it is Oregon State. No, not disrespect to the university, but the idea that this is now a team that is no longer a high major program.
Yeah.
Of all the places for this to happen, now you have, and I know there was some criticism of some questions being directed to these players about transfer portal and kind of what do you do now?
Yeah.
Because you're not playing with UCLA and USC and Stanford anymore.
Yeah.
So this is going to be, I'm very, very fascinated to see how this is all going to play out here. I really hope they figure out a way to keep this together because, like you said, this is a team that clearly has found a way to improve internally and the coaching is working. It's all working. They've got an opportunity to be that much better next season if they all stick around, and hopefully they get the opportunity to challenge themselves the way they need to during the season to make another run next March.
Indeed. We've got 2 more Elite Eight games on the women's side. Maybe the most anticipated night of college hoops, period. This season,
most anticipated matchup for sure.
You've got a rematch of last year. Iowa, Caitlin Clark, LSU, Angel Reese. That's at 7:00 tomorrow night. And then if that's not good enough for you, if that's not enough for one night, you've got Gino Auriemma, Paige Beckers, and UConn taking on Juju Watkins and the number 1 seeded USC Trojans. It's going to be excellent. It's going to be awesome. And we will get to give it the full attention it deserves on tomorrow's pod, which is going to be awesome.
Can't wait. Let's do it.
Anything else?
No, I think that, I guess, okay, real quick, because we didn't get to talk about it because of all of the other things that were happening last pod. We don't need to get into the nose ring situation. But I do want to, because I had told you I have a new favorite player. I didn't get to discuss it. I love Hannah Hidalgo's game. I know she had a stinker against Oregon State. She was still impacting that game. The way she plays defense, she is just, I absolutely love watching her. I love what she's about. She is everything that is right with the city of Philadelphia. I am incredibly excited to see where she goes from here. So I just want to publicly announce that.
Heck yeah. Trivia time, Josh. Where are the semifinals of the NIT being played?
Oh, yeah. You talk about the women's side? Or is it both? Actually, I know the answer for the women's. It might be. No, it is both. It is both. It's both, I think.
Shout out Hinkle Fieldhouse.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's both the men's and the women's.
Indiana's basketball cathedral.
Let's go.
Sure. Love it.
Yeah.
No better place to watch college basketball. W Arena, and even cooler on the men's side, Indiana State. One of the teams. That right. The place is going to be bumping for the Sycamores. It's going to be lit. But
that'd be so cool if they won.
That would be very, very cool. Maybe we'll give Indiana State some. We'll give them their roses if they end up winning the NIT. That would be. I'm not sure what kind of ending that would be for a team that I really wanted to see in the NCAA tournament. But for that team, if they were to win the NIT, to end their season on a win, I think would be some justice, at least in some way.
And a championship.
And a championship.
That part's got to matter too. Yeah.
100%. 100%. They will be able to hang up a banner that will remember this season for a long time, and that's a W, whether it's an NIT or an NCAA tournament championship. Alrighty, that's enough. 36 minutes on the Under 8 podcast in true fashion. We'll be back tomorrow post women's Elite 8 action to break that down and set up what will be two very intriguing Final Fours, no matter what happens tomorrow evening. Thank you so much for being here. Under 8 podcast, Sunday, March 31st. It is 8:43 p.m. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to your shows. Follow the Under 8 pod on Twitter. Subscribe on YouTube. Thank you so much for being here, and we will see you tomorrow.